from
Thank you
Nashville,
for thank for that awesome
Tennessee.
hint there. That was the
Yeah.
record, Daryl. You should be recording this as a local file.
I don't know what you're talking about, Daryl.
No, that was a great hint.
Coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, the home of the Tennessee Titans, which is NFL football, American football team. We are tied for the division lead right now. So just saying we're actually having a good year this year.
That's good.
There you go.
I don't follow NFL, but I do see the lead teams change quite a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's I guess down to who pays for which players as well. Maybe.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. It's more. It has more to do with luck than anything.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So we have the message center,
Yep.
and I don't have a lot going on in mine. But when we were doing our comparison, yet again, here's another example of where we can say that this message center is talking about your tenant. So we're
Right.
going to present from your tenant, Dan, and that
Yep.
means that we'll
On
lose your
fire.
face, but we
Oh
will see.
no! That's
We'll
probably a
see
good
you.
thing.
Yeah, maybe. Let me.
All right, let me know when you can see it.
I can see it, and we'll choose the right layout so we're not getting double dose of Daryl.
Okay.
I think we're good. Yes.
Okay. Start at the bottom, like we normally do.
Yeah. Now the.
Oh.
Yep, that's right. We have a new capability that's within the Office 365 Admin Center. We've for a while now, well, really ever since we've been able to get into Office 365, we've been able to manage our own migrations. Just doing just a basic migration, nothing too flash, doing batches and driving things in. And this is now a capability to migrate your own public folders into an Office 365 group. So
Right.
your public folders on-prem, we know that they've been around for some time and made use of for mail, shared calendars. Some people have been using them for collaboration on documents. A number of different things. Mail-enabled public folders as well too, so you can receive those
That's right.
messages. So this service is going to allow you to drive your own migration. It will be just in its most basic form though too.
Yep.
But it's certainly a welcome capability because it's the natural fit. What do you think, Dan? It's a natural fit from public folder to Office 365 group.
I think so. I think that obviously there's additional functionality with 365 Group. So this is not I'm just going to move my folders over to 365 Group and I don't have to take any other anything else into account. But I do like it. I like this migration, and I like that. I was highlighting that this is not a forced migration. I like that, and anything that gives power to the people for their migrations or for changes I do like. So this is a good.
It's something about public folders that they've been hanging on for quite some time because
A long time. Yes.
no matter how they've tried to modernize them or whatever, there's still a genuine need for being able to collaborate in this way and make it easy for people to find within Outlook. So this is probably one of the more significant steps towards helping people to get to a viable replacement.
Yes.
Is how I
agree.
put it. Yeah, particularly around the folders for document migration. For documents because people still will send attachments in on email and they'll post documents into public folders, but we know that it's far better to use SharePoint and groups in the background. Certainly makes it easier and simpler.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I'm going to do the obligatory clicking on the more information just to show there is more detail on there about how to migrate those folders to 365 groups. So this is actually an example of good content when you click this link. We're
Yeah.
going to quickly find one that is a bad link for additional information. But so please do check that out.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Well, when you say it's a good link, it's actually taking you through to the steps that you would take
Exactly.
to set it up.
That's right.
And like it's traditionally been something that the Exchange team have been very good at, because they have those steps, they have tried and true paths, and they follow that pattern. So good to see.
Yeah, it is good to see. Now let's go to the next one, where this is a SharePoint one, and I'm going to skip ahead to the very bottom and click additional information since we were just talking about that. Yeah. So the ask.ms short link they've created points you to the SharePoint dev site. So if you'd like to understand from a developer's perspective what SharePoint is, then that's where you need to go. So here's an example of a bad link. And what I mean by bad is, just like you said, it's not pointing to the correct place, or it doesn't give any additional information, which is kind of the name of the link, so you would think it would. So
it feels like a placeholder, doesn't it? And what is that additional information for, which is not really additional information?
Right. Well, this for the longest time we've been creating. We've had the ability to add things into SharePoint, and it's always been at the root level where we're adding in this case, apps. We've been calling them apps for just a little while here. And so in Office 365 and SharePoint Online, we add those apps into a app catalog, but it's tenant-wide. This new feature is to bring, again, additional power to those site collection administrators who control their site collection and are, want to add additional functionality, but they are not the tenant admin, so they can't add those apps into the app catalog at that level. So this is bringing the site collection app catalog, so allowing site collection administrators to be able to add apps to their site collection. Now, one really important bit about this is that it's not like every site collection administrator can just go crazy. Access to this feature for individual site collection is controlled by the tenant admin. So it is something that your tenant admin would need to allow you to be able to do. But once you can add apps. I think this is a good idea, especially when we talk about the control that we've had with apps. And there's some governance around this that you're going to have to put in place. But I think this is generally a good idea. What do you think?
Well, I'd have a sort of a question really for this. It's, now that we've gone into modern sites and there's been a lot of modernizing of lists and libraries and other existing apps to bring it up to that modern experience.
Sure.
Is this what it's for? Is it to enable third party or for your own internal development to bring those apps and have them sitting in a catalog so that people can use them within the sites that they might manage?
This is primarily to bring the capabilities for the SharePoint framework components when you're developing those, using the SharePoint framework to bring those in. That's what it's primarily for. So you can target a site collection to give them functionality where you might not want that functionality for another site collection. So this really, I think the driver for this is not third-party specifically apps. It's more about bringing that functionality to where you can target, like I said, site collections with those components using the new SharePoint framework.
So I can see where that could have been useful back when the OneNote class notebook used to be a SharePoint app. It's now part of another way of delivering that, but the old way was you had to drop it into the app catalog, and you might want it just available for classrooms but not for teachers, or vice versa, and you just didn't have that option in the past. So I can see where this is quite useful.
Yeah, and this is going to be rolling out first release to customers in early November, which early November could be in 2 days, or it could be, in the next week or so. So it should be completed by the end of November. So it's a pretty quick, first release starting in November, by the end of November having it to everyone. So that's pretty fast.
Simon Denton's joined us via Periscope. He said that that'd be quite useful from a internally developed apps perspective.
Agreed. Yeah, and you could test those out on a site collection that is, maybe you're wanting to test that out on the production farm, but in a site collection where maybe it's for your IT or something like that. So I agree. It's it brings new capabilities that I think we've been wanting for a while. Getting targeting, right? Targeting your apps for specific users or a specific use case.
Yep. Cool. Well, what's next?
All right. So, do you update your iPhone regularly?
Yeah. Look, okay. And I've got to say that I'm not. Well, I like a lot of what's come through for iOS 11, but I don't like the random reboots. That's just me. I've got an iPhone 6s downsized so I could get my 3.5 jack back, so I could connect audio equipment more conveniently, and for some reason I'll get reboots randomly, so that hasn't been fun. But I see here, just like Microsoft say when they're not going to be supporting significant applications on certain platforms,
right?
Seems that they're telling us about it too, that if you are on iOS 9, if you haven't even updated to 10, then be prepared for the Outlook app to no longer receive updates.
Which I think
iOS 9.
I think there's probably a lot of people still on 9. Not a majority by any stretch, but I think there's probably a few, and which is surprising because the whole. I don't know if 9 did this. I don't know if it was a new feature with 10. I think it was with 10. You're bugged constantly. Don't you want to upgrade? Don't you want to upgrade? Don't you want to upgrade? And if you don't follow the remind me later and then click the button at the bottom. So if you hit remind me later and then put in your passcode, because of course it gives you the dialing pad, and maybe I need to put my passcode in. Then you just gave it permission to update your phone like overnight. So just heads up there. So. In 10 it bugs you like crazy to update to the next one. So I don't think it does in 9. And so these people do need to update. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, I totally understand that. Last two versions, being iOS 10 and 11 being the last two. But what I don't understand is it just talks about Outlook for iOS. What about all the other apps? For iOS, and maybe they'll be coming in, but what about for OneDrive and OneNote and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's and all of those I just named start with an O. Anyway, I that's what I started thinking about is what about those others?
Yeah, good point. Are we expecting to see each of those sorts of notifications come in too? Because each of those product groups have decided we're no longer supporting iOS 9. I know that they make quite a point out of anything to do with email because it's still a crucial service to everyone. Yeah. And if you remember when there was the upgrade to iOS 11, that the native app, the native mail app for iOS 11 was not working initially with Office 365. The workaround was to install Outlook for iOS, which it's all good, it works. But some people do prefer to use the native apps.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So go to the next one, which is a planned maintenance for Power BI. I searched on this, and unlike others, this is not a blip, apparently. This is maybe more than a blip. We've talked about maintenance windows being, for Skype for Business, being blips. This one is actually a 2-hour window where it could go down for you, and you will not be able to create or distribute content. That goes for dashboards and content packs and apps, etc. Sharing dashboards. So you're not going to be able to do any of that possibly during this 2-hour window. It's I don't know if it's going to be down for 2 hours or not, but during this window.
That's one that I don't have though, Dan, you see. So again, it's the difference that your tenant, your data center is receiving that upgrade, where
Right.
I don't have anything else to say for this week in my tenant.
Yeah, it's and I think this is one of those where, unfortunately, for everyone else, I guess fortunately for me, that things sometimes roll out in the U.S. Before they roll out for others, and I think that's kind of the case here. Is that this is rolling out in the U.S. data center, but this is also a symptom of, one thing we saw. I believe it's a symptom of this, is when we were at Ignite, they talked about more services are going to be localized in regions in the Azure data centers, across the globe. And I'm not sure where you get Power BI from. I don't know if Power BI is in your data center or not. So, which
This
is
might be
interesting.
a good indication. Then, if you've got the update and I don't, maybe.
Maybe, but think about this though. If you have Power BI from the US, and now I'm not saying this, and I may be totally wrong about this, so that's okay. That's not the first time I'd be wrong. That I'm getting the notice, but you're not. That doesn't make sense though, right? Because if it would affect you, then you should get it either way. So, I don't know. That would be interesting. Do you use Power BI? Have you at all? I mean, if you haven't, then that would be a reason why you wouldn't see it. But
Yeah, it is active in my tenants, also active in the Adopt and Embrace tenant. So we have the content pack. I forget what the new name is, but the adoption content pack.
Oh, yep, right.
Yeah.
The new name for the
Yeah. There is a new name that makes a lot more sense and it's a lot shorter, and we should
It does.
memorize that. So that be mindful that if you have this in your tenant, then you won't be able to access those reports as well, among other things that you've probably got.
That's exactly right.
I'm sure it's for the better. No additional information, I see.
No additional information is here, and I think when I see that, just to me, I don't have any inside information, but this typically for me means they are making changes that are going to enable additional features that have not been publicly announced. That's kind of what I was when I see these. Now it may be something not that, but that's kind of what I was thinking it was.
Got it. What else you got?
What else? Well, the next two are Office connectivity changes, and these go right along with the way we've been hearing over and over that changes are coming. You need to change the way you use your Office uses things, and so if you're using like Outlook 2010 or before, you may run into some issues, and may even be 2013, and depending upon what service pack level and all this kind of stuff. And this is more information about the discovery service and how the changes are going to come, and it's beginning in a couple days to affect you. That any code using the Live Connect APIs or Live SDKs will no longer execute. So if you've got those hanging around, that's definitely going to be a problem with Office 365. And then
what are those SDKs? Is that using the Microsoft Live service rather than the Microsoft Account service?
Yeah, this is I am not an expert on this, but this is the connection. They've told us a while back that they're turning off the old way of connecting, and this I believe is just part of that they're ceasing those options for connectivity.
I see that they're bringing, like it says there in like the second paragraph, it's all about bringing it all into the Microsoft Graph and having one touch point to do all your API connections into Office.
Yep, that's right. And so this is just consolidating. This is progress. Some might say this is bad, but it's one of those. When they're widening the road by your house, they're going to take some of your yard, right? It's progress, but it may affect you. So just be aware of that. And then and I don't know if it does. It does have additional information. It takes you to the Dev Center, which is great because it's going to give you a lot of information to how to get from where you are to where you need to go. And then I was going to go to the next one, which is right on the same vein about Outlook, the REST APIs. Same deal, that they're going to stop supporting the basic authentication in their Outlook REST API 1.0. And et cetera. So it's kind of in the same vein, consolidating, and then I'm going to click additional information again. Is that the same one?
Looks to be.
Yep. So same one. And so I was right. I'm glad I'm right this time. So definitely check that out to make sure that you are, any apps that you've developed or where, make sure you're connecting to endpoints that are still going to be active,
Would you consider this to be something worthy of the major update tile that we saw last week?
If I was using this in my organization, then most certainly. So I am not, but if I was, then yes, this would be huge, right? Because they were saying when they probably 3 months after they started talking about this, they were saying, I saw some numbers and it looked like there was a very low number of organizations were doing anything about the changes that were coming. So I don't know if the evangelism, was, people weren't hearing it or they just didn't, they postponing it. But so if I'm doing this, then yes, I think this might be something that would be worthy of the special section at the top. But you can see I don't have that. These are not showing.
No, that's right. And that sort of concludes our messages too for your Msg Center. I only had a couple of others which were around the use of Intune, so that's just specific to my tenant. Let me just flick back to our faces if you want to restore your video, and we'll discuss just one other thing.
Yep.
Daniel's coming back.
Here I am.
Yeah, right. So there was, we usually try and ask also, was there anything that we saw that had changed throughout the week? And I've just been having my head into document creation, so there hasn't been a heck of a lot there. I have seen the SharePoint information panel appear in the latest update, so now I can update my metadata in that panel. I wish it was. I haven't managed to figure out if I can trigger that to make it pop to make sure that information is entered. Is that something that you've heard or seen anything about there?
So do you mean having, when you're entering it like new and it's required for it to say, hey, this is required, or are you talking about in what scenario do you want it to pop, as you said?
Let's say that it is a new document. I'm creating it. I've got some required fields. That pane should pop, shouldn't it? I actually haven't tested that scenario yet, but the other thing we could do with the document information panel and the info path styled settings was we could say always display it no matter what. I want to see those. I want to see those metadata terms, those keywords, so that people can see them. They're used to seeing them, then they're more likely to fill them in or even use them. Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. That was, I've actually used the DIP, the Document Information Panel, in the past, and it became part of a well-used system that it was required for it to always show, and that was very important for those users. They're not IT people; they were people who were in a manufacturing process, and they really they didn't have time to figure all that out. So we show it immediately, and I think that is pretty important. And it is. If it's not doing it now, then I think we just need to provide feedback to
I think
get that done. Yeah.
Yeah, even if we're not entering that information in, it could be a good method to get an organization to create awareness. This is a feature.
Right.
It's there. Here's some words that are important to this document. We're always going to show them. And then when it is your turn to actually have to enter something in, you're more likely to do it because you can see the value.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that. So that might be something that'd be a good run through. I think maybe I'll put that on my list when I have some free time, to do a nice video run through of the feature. Yep.
Yeah, good call. The other thing that I saw, just quite by accident, these are the sorts of things that you don't expect to appear in the Msg Center, but when I used to copy links to documents from Microsoft Teams, or rather into a Microsoft Team message, I copy that link from a Word document, drop it into the message, and I'm trying to have a conversation around it. It used to be the great big ugly link. Now when I go to the top of a Word document and I say copy link to document, my option that I choose is I'm choosing everyone who's in the organization is able to access that. Paste it into a message in Microsoft Teams, and it is just the title of the document, and it's nicely hyperlinked. So it's attractive. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It's just something that always gets me.
They've done a better job. Initially, when SharePoint Online had that, it was started with the easy sharing, and this was, I don't know, year and a half ago or whatever, when they started doing this. The link was just nasty. Even when you're in just SharePoint and you're like, I want to share this link, and you copy it and it's got all that junk on the end. But now it is nice. And even when you're just trying to grab that link from the properties pop-up when you're doing looking at a document, it's really nice and clean, and you can read it. So even if you're getting the real link, it's nice. And so to be able to paste it into Teams and get that nice, here's the title. Just click on it. You don't need to know, how many spaces, is in a URL with all the %20. So it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably all I've noticed. As I said, I had my head inside documents and not really checking out discussions in the tech community. But that's, again, probably as I'd finish off is say, that's a great place to hear about what is happening. The community, when they observe some change, they will talk about it, good or bad. Mostly bad when they talk about it a lot, because people tend to swarm and go, but what's happening here? But the good stuff also gets discussed too. What would be your any observations you've seen this week?
I was trying to still, we have, and it has to do with Microsoft Teams actually, the external access is still a little bit wonky. So I was sorry I couldn't join you last week. I was at a conference, and I was speaking with another MVP that was there, and we were talking about external access in Teams, and we were seeing something really weird, which was if someone who has MFA enabled for their account, multi-factor authentication, their access into Teams via external, right? They're externally to your tenant, is actually easier than someone who doesn't have MFA turned on, which is totally backwards, which is of the way you would think it would work. You think MFA causes complexity, but his case and mine with a coworker, it's causing issues. So that's one thing that I think, and I bring that up to say, that's a new feature that has been talked about of this external access, and we talked about it, but it's still not the best. It's not very click here, and you're done kind of experience. At least that's what I've experienced. So, just kind of heads up on people. I've heard several people say that. So
yeah. I think one example of that, you and I belong to a internal Microsoft team in Microsoft, so it's hanging off their tenant, and they've got multi-factor authentication in the sense that it will ask you for
you have to.
Either you get rung and you got to press your hashtag or your hash on the phone to say, yep, I really am trying to log into that tenant, right. Or you get your text alert, and then you've got to go through that way. So that seems to work fine in-house at the moment.
It does, but I actually haven't jumped on. I mean, I'm on there. I've been added, but I haven't jumped in and started participating because the account that I wanted to use doesn't have MFA installed. And I'm going to enable it, but it's my demo account. Well, it's one that I use for demos, and so I'm trying to. I don't want to sit there and present and have to do it, an MFA while I'm presenting something.
Yeah.
But
well,
I
good
also
news there. Good news
anyway.
there is that it's not that you will have to put it on your tenant and use it forever and a day for your regular usage. When an account is created as a guest account in the host tenant,
Right.
for want of a better word, that's where the requirements are.
Yeah.
So I still log in and I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud, but I don't use the MFA as well on my demo tenant. But when I log into that team's experience, occasionally, not every time, but occasionally I am asked to drop in that code.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's all I got, my friend, and we're at time today.
Yeah,
so.
we're at time. So yeah, do continue to tune in to all the bits and pieces that we're doing. Our team has got a little larger. We are creating recorded content like Dan's recordings from interviews at IT Dev Connections. You've got other people that are beginning to create video content and writing a bit as well. So you find us at regarding365.com. You find us right here on Twitter. And we're doing other things like Facebook. We're using it a bit more too. We've got Matt Hughes, who's occasionally contributing stuff there as well. So regarding 365, Office 365 Msg Center, the week that was the 23rd of October. We'll see you again next week. Bye for now.